You know what my worst enemy is while working on this mod pack? No, it's not Spectrum. I know I've said some things in the past, but that's not where I'm going with this. It's past me making all of the same stupid mistakes over and over and over and causing massive inefficiencies in my base. So today, the past dies in another episode of Statech Industry. All right, so obviously it's been a couple of weeks. I got sick and it was honestly not that great, guys. But this is also delayed not just because I got sick. I ran into a whole bunch of bottlenecks that were predicated by some decisions I had made in the past in the base here. So I think we should probably go and talk about some of it. Part of which was just needing to clean up this upper floor on the back wall here, which you can see I did expand somewhat, and I took a destruction gadget all over to the walls back here and got some of that taken care of finally, although not the platform right there. But starting about the last episode, I noticed I was running low on a few things, one of which was the ender pearls. Because yeah, this looks like it was running just fine now, but that's because I had to basically cap off the molten Iridium used down there and turn it off entirely because this uses more liquid ender than it creates. So I had to get this moving back up to speed and get it overclocking, but I also noticed this because I was trying to make entangled tanks and didn't have any ender pearls at all. So I solved that the AE2 way by putting a level emitter on the machine that creates the ender pearl dust. I also had to take it a step further, and I had to drop my ME fluid storage cells down to the small size, and you can see that we're still nowhere near even maxed out on either one of these. But that's something that will fix itself over time, and that's kind of was a repeating theme. I had to swap out a bunch of those storage cells because liquid processing over here was just randomly eating up a ton of materials that it just didn't need to. We were oversupplying for things we didn't currently have a need for, so I capped off a bunch of that. Somewhat related, you might have remembered that I had the turbo machine hull components going down through here, and that's all gone now, and it's all in the wall here. But that caused a problem where I completely ran out of my whole stock of aluminum. I don't remember how much I had, but I'm pretty sure it was more than 10,000. But it just pretty much immediately gobbled all of that up. And honestly, the only real fix for that was to let the game just continue to run, which wasn't ideal, but it was also something I had to do for the next problem. Because you remember how we made tungsten last time and I had one electric compressor doing it with some turbo upgrades going on it? Well, I had to add a bunch more of these. Also, I'm concerned that the overclock ran out on this. But now I have 5 of them running because I noticed that I was about to run into a massive headache for this episode. So to get on to where we're going, it's time to try to progress over to the EV voltage era over here and make the final circuit. But one of the things I'd wanted to do with that was make the implosion compressor, which isn't entirely necessary, I don't think, to do some of this, but would have been a nice to have. And if you look at this doesn't look too bad. This is just 16 blast-proof ingots, right? Except if you look at the multi-block, it requires 16 of these casings, which requires 8 ingots each. And long story short, that requires 256 tungsten ingots to make this, because we don't have the means to speed it up with the implosion compressor yet or make the more efficient version of the blast-proof plates, because the electric compressor can do them at 2 for 1, and the implosion compressor can do them at 1 for 3 with the cost of industrial TNT. The good news is that we now have enough plates to make the casings that I should take these out because this is what I've got it capped in my storage system because we need to make a couple more. We are also going to pretty much immediately run into another massive wall getting to the EV circuits because there's a required component we haven't addressed yet, and we really should have, and that's what we're going to handle first because this doesn't require the blast-proof ingots. And that's going to be argon gas, which is used by a lot of the subcomponents here, and it's going to be made by utilizing the pressurizer with an air intake to make liquid air, which is going to centrifuge into a very tiny amount of argon, and we need it in slightly larger than small amounts, because even a subcombine on the circuit requires 250. So I guess we need to start by making the pressurizer, which requires making a couple new things that we don't have currently available, mostly involving titanium, mostly in the form of the curved plates, the casing, and the gears. So I guess we've got our marching orders.
Sometimes chill on my own, just wanna do me, just wanna doze, just You know when the calling's calling. And it's calling, calling more. And it keeps on calling. It's calling, calling more. And it feels like I'm falling. Do you want it or you need it? Is it part of your soul like breathing? Is it something mad you're achieving? Is it all for a petty little evening? Do you want it or you need it? Is it part of your soul like breathing? Is it something mad you're achieving? What's the energy here for the evening? Evening, mad, evening. Come on now, what's the energy here for the evening? Sweet, evening, evening. You know when they're calling more. And it's calling, calling. And it keeps on calling. Till it's calling, calling. You know when the calling's calling more. Calling's calling. Calling's calling. You know when the calling's calling more. You know when the calling's calling. And it's calling, calling more. And it keeps on calling. It's calling, calling more.
And with that, we now finally have Argon producing. I'm almost certainly going to need more centrifuges and possibly another pressurizer or two, but this at least gets us going forward. That does remind me that this for sure does need some turbo upgrades, though. We'll have to play it by ear for how many we actually need. Oh, you know, I can probably put a couple more in than that even. Yeah, that's probably closer. That should keep it under the max that'll tap out the power system. Although I probably will need to put another one back here. Oh, that's not good. That's bad. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Remember what I was saying about bottlenecks? Power's one of them. That must have been the new HV on the pressurizer, maybe. You know what? That seems likely because I forgot I put an HV energy hatch in here, so that caused this to generate a ton of power. That might have eaten up a ton of steam. I guess I have one more thing I gotta go fix real fast. Or maybe not immediately. We seem to be at least stable for steam. I probably should go put one more just to make sure the ME system doesn't turn off though, huh? All right, there we go. More capacity finally coming in. And the worst part is I don't have all the parts for this automated, so I always forget steps that I need to make here. And we're not going to fix that. That at least gave us time to make almost no argon whatsoever. But the important part is that means we can now move on and slowly let it build up while we do these other steps. We're going to ignore the high pressure fluids and steam right now and ignore all this entirely for a bit, as well as the implosion compressor, which I will probably make as part of this or shortly after. But for now, we're going to work on making the iridium and platinum dust supply chains. And we'll start with iridium because this is the one that's going to be more of an impact for us later. But both it and platinum work more or less the same sort of way, where they are like chromium, where they're made from a sulfuric solution, in this case, platinum, which is really simple. It's just platinum in a chemical reactor with sulfuric acid, just like before. Whereas the platinum dust is made from purified platinum sulfuric solution, made from the same platinum sulfuric solution. So I need to find some reasonable way to split the supply chain between the two of them and keep it all supplied. Okay, I just realized while setting this up that I missed something obvious. We can just take the platinum sulfuric solution, run it through centrifuge, get the purified, and we'll also get iridium as a byproduct. I still can't read, folks. I'm trying to work on that. It's not getting better. Well, I switched my network to pulling steam into my AE2 system completely, and I created two output intake links. I thought the throughput from these might be the problem. But you can see all the rubber banding happening on these tanks. These ones are staying mostly stable. I swapped out the ones on here, on the pressurizer, on the coolers, and on the chemical banks here, and they're all kind of doing that rubber band thing. I don't know if we're okay or not, although the chargers seem to be going, so I think maybe we're okay. Maybe it's just a graphical thing. I'm not entirely sure. Well, that one's tapped out. That's not great. I don't know. I'm just going to move forward and hope that this doesn't cause a major power problem very shortly that I'm going to also have to resolve due to past hiccups here. That said, the steam does appear to be building up pretty quickly, so I'm hoping that we're in a good spot. I pulled it out of my old tank that was passing it into the steam cracking system, and moved it into a much larger cell, and it went from 72 down to 52, and now it's back up to 79. So I think we're generating enough steam. We're just not handling the generators well enough in theory. So I may need to just switch to HV cables. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. Well, I can't think of anything that could have gone worse than bricking my A2 system, which is what I just had to fix. Because one of the things I did when I set this up to pull steam out of this system is change the tank that goes in. You notice that it's not here anymore. This tank was also linked to this tank back here, which fed my A2 system. I had moved that tank up to here so that it would put the steam in up here. The problem is there was nothing feeding that tank anymore. That tank had been linked downstairs. You know, right here where the large steel tank used to be, the ender tank there used to feed out of that and out of the pipes here up into that system. So that tank didn't exist anymore, and the whole A2 system just completely bricked. So what I had to do was come into the crawl space under the furnaces and basically yank off this import bus right here and connect it back up to the inner tank temporarily. Not ideal, and there's nothing stopping this from happening again right now. I need to come up with a solution that can handle that, but for now my steam is increasing, although everything lost its overclock, so this may actually be still a net negative. I don't know yet. We'll see in a little bit in the future. But on the upside, switching these to importers means that the pipes are draining faster. I don't think the last two furnaces back here were actually exporting their full steam amount due to the way modern industrialization pipes work. Like if we look up here, you can see the network amount, the network fluid, and the network transfer. The transfer was only at like 4K or something. So you would see the network amount sitting at like 20K for how long the pipe was, but it would never completely empty. So I think that actually sped things up some. We'll see how we go. This could still be very, very bad though. Well, I think things have at least stabilized now, so I guess let's go make things worse, huh? Because we not only needed to make the dust, which we now have, we need to process the platinum into ingots and the iridium into monocrystalline silicon. And I think it's pretty obvious since I'm standing in front of the blast furnaces that that's how this works. On the upside, I think we are mostly through the hard parts of this and we just have to go make a bunch of machines now. So let's get this step done so we can move forward. And just like that, we're done. So we've got the platinum being processed as per the norm in here, and we've got the monocrystalline silicon processing here, although I'm doing it a bit differently this time than normal on a couple of counts. Partially because this is now taking an argon and it uses up 1500 per, and argon's expensive, folks. So I have it in a bronze fluid input hatch, so it only keeps 4,000 at a time. Up here, we are also powering via an HV turbine as per the norm, but I removed the wireless part of it to make it have more throughput so I can scale it more easily through the cables here. To be completely honest, I probably am going to need to run an actual power trunk through here and get rid of all of the wireless, at least around the blast furnaces, because these eat up a lot more power when overclocking than everything else does. I probably should do this through most of my base though, because eventually we're going to have to cut over to nuclear and fusion power. And the last thing I did was put a level emitter here to check the number of monocrystalline silicons we have in stock, and only do it if we have less than 2 remaining. I'm only limiting it on the iridium itself because I don't care about the silicon dust right now, and we're only keeping 4 down here. The iridium's not the bottleneck, but it is a lot more important long-term than the silicon itself is. And this takes a long time to make, so we don't care about the silicon at this point. We just want to keep the number of these down because the argon is very expensive. Coming up one floor, we created another cooler so that the actual platinum is being processed from the hot ingot into its normal form. And it's off right now because the platinum is made relatively slowly. And then going up one more floor because we are out of space. This empty hall down here is dedicated for AE2 machines long term if I need it. We have started a new wall. Yes, I'm aware there's no actual wall here. We'll get on that at some point when I care more. But here we're doing the same thing where we are having an HV steam turbine going through a storage unit as a battery over a cable for faster transmission speeds. This is a cutting machine that has a turbo machine hull inside to take HV power, and this is slicing up the monocrystalline silicon into silicon wafers. We just have this in a downgraded drawer for 64 right now because these make 32 at a time. And that gets us up to the actual circuit manufacturing itself, where we are going to run into some new rabbit holes. Well, I say rabbit holes, but the reality is it's mostly just a handful of things that we haven't done yet before that looks worse than it actually is. Like we need to make the memory management unit, which is just platinum wire, which we can set up pretty quickly. and an emerald plate, which, well, that's just the electric compressor, which can make the plates. We just can't make the emeralds itself, but I have a decent number in storage right now, until I actually make the implosion compressor finally and handle both that and the diamonds. And speaking of the diamonds, we need to make the diamond plate for the arithmetic logic unit. So same problem here. Then there's the random access memory, which isn't too bad, except this requires Argon to make them 2 at a time. And we know that Argon's expensive. But in addition to the Argon, we also need styrene butadiene rubber, which, yeah, we haven't made that one before, but it turns out that that's actually easier than it looks. Because it's made from just styrene butadiene combined with lead or chromium. I can use chromium now because it's actually, we've got a bunch in storage, which makes 500 into 700. And the styrene butadiene is just styrene combined with butadiene, which the butadiene we already have. And the styrene is just ethyl benzene and steam, and we've got both of those combined with some iron dust. So all in all, that actually looks mostly pretty easy to do. It just requires setting up a bunch of machines now. The last piece is the processing unit board, which there is a new thing here as well. Well, we also need to make platinum plates, but we need cadmium batteries, which is just all the stuff we've ever used to make batteries before in the past combined with some cadmium dust. But the cadmium dust is just coming straight out of the moissanite that we needed to make the neodymium with previously, so we've got this also under control. And once we have all of those, we need to make the processing unit finally, which pretty much caps out the chapter. And this is expensive in terms of digital circuits. This uses a ton of material, specifically aluminum. And we're going to have to find a way to level emit that somewhere reasonably. I need to figure out how to set all that up. But I guess let me just go smash together a whole bunch of machines and get done with this chapter, huh? All right, and the whole reason I was down here in the basement is I wanted to point out that a friend made me realize that my concept of having enough items in storage to get through this step was probably not what I needed it to be. These were all downgraded drawers that only had 64 ones for the basic materials. I've uncapped these. These are now slowly building up to 512. The motors are the bottleneck here, which it just now occurred to me I probably should have turbo upgrades in. Anyhow, let's begin, shall we?
There's coldness there, there's karma. There's heat, there's flames, there's lava. Volcanic, what can we do? It gets manic. I know what I'd rather. When I pick up the mic, is power. When I pick up the mic, got powers. When I pick up the mic, is power. When I pick up the mic, got powers. Pick up the mic, got powers. 4:32 in the morning. Yeah, I'm still up, you're boring. Life keeps getting better and better, and I'm not stressed, I'm snoring. It'll get messy, get gory. Simpleness not for me. I don't care about football, care about this, that, care if you're acting 40. Like, go back, can't ignore me.
And with this, we now have the processing unit done. I've got this set to capacity of 4, but I don't really have any way to rate limit this because there's no real way to hook up a level emitter because I don't have A2 up here, although I could run cable up here for now. But long term, I'm probably best to have this up to a stack of 64 anyway, so this is just going to hurt my resources for a while. But that's okay. I say as I'm probably about to cripple all of my resources by doing this, but, got to break some eggs to make an omelet, right? But this means the last thing we need to do to actually finish out this chapter and get to the nuclear age is make the highly advanced machine hall, which, shock among shocks, is very, very easy at this point because we have all of this automated, well, except for the highly advanced machine casing, which I think the only new trick here is the chromium plates, which I may already be making. Nope, I'm not, but that's, 7 ingots seems bad, though. Oh, you know what? It's because I'm thinking of stainless steel. We just need to actually process some of that into ingots and then turn it into plates. So it's only a couple more steps. You know what? I'm possibly saying that far too confidently. Let's go make sure that there isn't some massive trick here. And, hot ingots. Well, at least it's just one more EBF. This at least isn't hard. And here I thought I was just about done already. But hey, at least I left myself just barely enough room here to put in one last electric blast furnace, huh? And with that, we have the highly advanced machine hall complete. Although I guess we need homes for it yet. But there we are, the digital age chapter finished. Well, or finished enough to get us into the nuclear age. See right there. And we already even have EV cables somehow. How do we already have EV cables? Oh, the annealed copper, huh? Interesting. But this, of course, means it's time to claim our rewards. Well, it was another day where the rewards were just kind of sad for the most part. We got a pair of guns that I didn't want to make because I don't need that sort of thing in my life at all. A tungsteel tank, which holds a ridiculous amount of fluids, but we have it all sitting over in our A2 storage system anyways. Plastic to make the guns that I didn't want to make. A cod roll, which I haven't eaten, so that's probably the best thing I got other than the nether stars, because I don't like fighting withers anyways. And then we've got a couple EV storage units, which will save me resources long term. That said, that apparently did give us another reward, and since it's an EV era reward, this might be something awesome. Well, a whole bunch of digital circuits for free, so I'll take that. Those are expensive. Anyhow, it mostly just felt like we were just punching out a whole bunch of machines to make a whole bunch of parts right again, but this at least was a lot of progress that's going to completely decimate my supplies. Speaking of which, let's go take a look at my aluminum, which has already halved, no, more than halved since I started this episode. I was at like 4,700. Yeah, we're in trouble, but we'll see how the next one goes, won't we, folks, as we can finally move on. Anyhow, if you found this episode interesting and entertaining, please leave a like or subscribe if you're new. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.